Solange is now finally discussing her mother. Solange is out there saying that the marriage ended because they discovered Richard was using Tina, and she had to step in and stop Richard. And this might have played a big part in the divorce. But was Richard really stealing from Tina? Tina Knowles is out here revealing some shocking details about her divorce from Richard Lawson, including how she has to keep Richard in line all the time and actually limits what he can access. Richard just got an iPad for Christmas. Richard Lawson and Tina Knowles have separated and announced their separation. Tina Knowles and Richard Lawson haven't shared any new photos on Instagram, so it turns out that their impending divorce has caused more drama in the Knowles family than we ever realized. At first, we believed that it would be one of the simplest and least contentious divorces we had ever witnessed. But judging by the online rumors, the couple's marriage was seriously messed up and chaotic. Things got so bad that Solange Knowles, who is a close friend of Tina's, before finally deciding to file for divorce in 2011, Matthew and Tina's tumultuous marriage nearly ended several times. Now, under normal conditions, they would have been extremely wary of Richard when he first began seeing her mother soon after she announced her divorce from Matthew. It is easy to understand why Solange would feel wary, because Tina was and still is a highly esteemed individual. Whatever that means, she is the mother of Beyonce and Solange, as well as the mother-in-law of Jay-Z. It goes without saying that she would highly be sought out. And if we're being honest, many of her suitors would be people who would try to use her to get close to Beyonce and also use her for fame and money. So like I said, it would totally be normal for Solange to go very suspicious of Richard when he decided to put in his body and soul into pursuing her mom. But she completely trusted Richard. And that's because he'd have been a friend of the family for years way before he and Tina got romantic. In fact, Richard and Tina were friends before Solange or Beyonce were even born, the two first men. When Tina was pregnant with Beyonce, her best friend Gwen was Richard's younger sister. And that's how Tina and Richard met. For the first time, Richard was immediately drawn to Tina, even though she was married and also pregnant, as up at the time, kind of weird. But hey, I guess some people are into that sort of thing. But it also didn't help that Richard was also married himself at the time and had a daughter of his own. He immediately started making moves on Tina, but she refused because, again pregnant, married, and she was determined to stay faithful to her then husband. But she eventually agreed to just be friends with Richard. She stayed friends with him for years, even though he was still into her. When he got divorced from his wife in the 90s, he tried to make moves on Tina again, but she shot him down once more and left him firmly in the friend zone. But it wasn't long before her own marriage to Matthew started to show some cracks. Y'all know how I said that she stayed loyal to Matthew. Well, he didn't return the favor, and word on the streets is that he has been cheating on her big time for years. He's been sneaking around with other women. And it got even worse when Beyonce and Solange got famous and made the entire family famous. He was also Beyonce's manager, which meant he had access, and had a lot of access to money at his disposal, especially since he was also accused of misappropriating funds and stealing from her. He also wasn't careful enough to keep his affairs a secret, because everybody knew that he was constantly stepping out on Tina. He ended up getting a woman pregnant while he was still with Tina, and she was completely heartbroken and humiliated. She filed for divorce, but she ended up withdrawing the petition because she wanted to give her marriage another try. She wanted to try and fix things, and they were good for a couple of months. But then Matthew ended up getting another woman pregnant, and that was the final straw that broke her, and she decided that she had had enough. So she filed for divorce from Matthew in 2011. And Richard was right there by her side. He had been stuck in the friend zone for more than 30 years at that point, and he decided to give it another try. He started pursuing her yet again. And again, she just wasn't all that into him. It took him another 2 years to convince her to see him as more than a friend. And they eventually started dating after about 32 years of being friends. So this explains why Solange and rest of the Knowles family were quick to accept Richard when he and Tina started dating. She had known him all her life as a close friend of her mom's, and so she trusted him. They had known each other before Tina and the rest of the Knowles family even knew that they were going to be famous, so Solange knew that he was going to be a much better fit for her mom than other suitors who were most likely after her money and the Knowles fame. And so Richard played his cards right once he managed to get Tina to date him. He knew how dedicated she was to her kids, so he made sure to carry them along in the relationship. He hung out a lot with our daughters and their families, making sure they were one big blended family. In fact, it was Tina's granddaughter, the iconic Blue Ivy Carter, who brought up the idea that Richard should propose to Tina. They were all at a family event. When Blue, who was still a toddler at the time, asked Richard when he and Tina were going to get married, Richard thought this was a smart idea and asked for Blue's permission to propose to Tina, and Blue immediately gave her permission. But he didn't stop there, because he decided to ask her daughter's permission before he proposed. Also, he knew how much her daughters meant to her, so he knew that it was important for him to have her daughter's support. In an interview, he said, "I called her children, and I asked for her hand in marriage from them. I thought that that was important, because I knew that it didn't stand a chance unless they were on board. I was fortunate enough that they were completely on board and just over the top excited about it." So like I said, Solange was all for the marriage because she thought Richard was the right one for her mom. But as time went on, she started to suspect that they might have been wrong about him, and that he might have been after the money and fame. All along, Solange admitted that her mom, Tina, can sometimes be difficult to deal with, like the time she embarrassed him on camera, which he told him he wasn't perfect. And I prayed for the type of man I wanted, and I got pretty much that. Is he perfect? Absolutely not. But he has a lot of the qualities. Now he has a lot of qualities that I love. And we're having a really good time, and I'm enjoying life. But Solange also believes that he uses her, just like he probably used his first wife, Denise Gordy. For those of you who don't know, Denise's uncle is the founder of Motown Records, which used to be one of the biggest record labels back in the day. Solange believes that he used Denise's connections to launch his career in Hollywood. She also believes that he used her mom for fame and connections. While he might have genuinely loved her at first, that slowly changed over the years, and he was completely in the marriage for his own selfish reasons. People have felt the same way about Solange's revelations, and they love common sayings like, "This is a prime example of you think you won something until you get it. And when you get it, you realize, I don't want it anymore." Tina realized this and decided she was not going to stay in a marriage where she was being used and not loved. She formally filed for divorce, and the marriage is over and done. Tina does come across as an extremely hardened person, and I would also say that I get disrespectful and rude vibes from her. On the other hand, what I have observed of Richard during interviews and other public appearances is a gentleman who comes across as genuine, kind, and loving. But what do you guys believe about what Saul said? If you enjoyed this video, leave your views and comments below. You should also view the following one.